Greetings and salutations once again. I'm back, but not with some Regulation H battling. Instead, I decided to take a little bit of a side jaunt here. Now, I mentioned before that you need to... It's almost really a necessity to EV train. There are some things that can get around that, like Rattata ages ago, and other things that can do Endeavor and then Quick Attack to get some rather nefarious kills. You don't necessarily have to EV train for those, but those are exceptions to the rule and never the rule. Pretty much as a rule of thumb, you have to EV train your Pokemon. Now, I have found that in Scarlet and Violet, there are two really exceptional places to do this, unless you're going for a very specific spread. If you're going for a very specific EV spread, unless you're going to really like min-max and do all the math and figure out how many you have to defeat and take off the power items and so on and so forth, unless you're doing it that way and you have a lot of, Pokédollars and League points, as you can see, I have none. You can always use your things like proteins, calcium, zinc, carbos, so on and so forth. Each one of them respectively gives 10 effort values in whatever stat you choose. Zinc is for special defense, calcium is for special attack, proteins for attack, iron is for defense, HP up is for HP, carbos is for speed, and so on. Now, if you're going for a specific spread, like say 170 into 3 stats, because you're only allowed to have 510 across your entirety of your Pokemon, you're only allowed to have 510 effort values, maximum of 252 in any one stat. Unless you're going for a 252 build where you have 252 and then 200 of another, etc. And you're going for a very solid spread, and you're going to go for a random spread, it's best to use like feathers, which give 1 effort value per feather, because then you can fine-tune. And you can use supplements like iron and whatnot to do the large portion of 10 effort values per. Now, the old way of doing it used to be like Ghastlies, I think, are 2 special attack for each Ghastly you kill. Now, obviously, I just use this Colossal to hatch eggs, so I use it for just, running over weak Ghastlies to get effort values for the other 2 members of my party, which happen to be a Hydrapple and a Hisuian Electro. I don't know if I'm going to put them on a team, but I figure, just EV train them anyway. Now, they're holding on to items, specifically. The Electrode is holding on to a Power Lens, and as soon as I can... There it is. He gets more special attack for each one defeated. Now, if you go here and you hit your L trigger, obviously there's your special attack, and I can show you how many you have to go through. Now, the power items give you +8 in whatever stat. So, with each Ghastly, I was getting 9 special attack stat in any specific in special attack. But if you notice, my Hydrapple, who already has a max special attack stat, is wearing a power belt to increase his defense, which means every single Ghastly I beat gives me 1 special attack, but he's already maxed, so it gives me nothing, and it gives me 8 defense effort values. So I'm gaining 8 defense effort values per every Ghastly I beat, because he's already buried the needle on the special attack. This is the kind of a little secret way I do it. That way you don't have to search for specific Pokemon. Like, in order to train defense, I would have to go and find Scatterbugs and there's one other. Tarantulas. Scatterbugs and Tarantulas give defense. I think that's a shiny Ghastly over there. Give me a second. One second. It is indeed a shiny Ghastly. And get it in a quick ball just to make people angry. Because they always said, what do you catch your shinies in? A quick ball, because it's easy. There we go. And It always happens when I'm EV training. I find shinies all over the place. Now, that also gives you effort values, by the way, when you catch them as well. Yeah. Kind of garbage in individual values, but there he is. The good old shiny Ghastly. Now, I know I have another box of shinies started somewhere. If I can just remember where that is. I run into so many of them. It's ridiculous. Just gotta find it. Where did I put it? There it is. It's box 30. This is just the stuff I find while EV training. So, you know, it just... Then I have all these shinies that I found while EV training as well. You know, Flamigo, Murkrow. But anyway, back to the EV training. If you go and are beating specific Pokemon, like I'm beating Ghastlies for special attack, and of course with the defense item on, I get 8 defense effort values. Now this is applicable across the board. Let's say you want to do speed effort values, okay? The speed effort values come from Magikarp. They can come from a lot of things, but you can generally find Magikarp here, right over here. But your chances of finding a Magikarp outside of using, say, a water sandwich tends to drop a little. Now, if you don't want to really fiddle around with that, your best bet is to, let's say you're making a physical sweeper and you max the attack on Flamigos. Flamigos, Choodles, and Croagunks all give attack at effort value. So I can show you my 2 favorite farming spots. So for special attack, it's right here. For HP, attack... For HP and defense, it's somewhere else, and for attack, it's somewhere else even still. Oh, also, Fletchinders give speed as well. But if you don't want to sit there and go around and, you know, pummel a bunch of Fletchinders into the ground and sit there waiting for Magikarps to spawn, just do what I do. You come out here and decide, oh, I want to make a... If I wanted to make a special sweeping Speedster, I come out here and I just equip a power anklet and get 8 effort values for every Ghastly I kill, and it also gives 1 special attack. Now, if you want to do a physical attacker, you do a power anklet and go beat Flamigos into the dirt. And there's tons of Flamigos, Choodles, and Croagunks, which all give attack. So you can kind of stack it up that way, and it really helps shorten the time. A few generations ago, it was far worse. I'm going to pour myself some coffee, if you don't mind. So a few generations ago, it was pretty bad. You'd have to do... In order to get, say, speed, and to max speed out, you would have to beat 252 Magikarps. And I believe it was back in Ruby and Sapphire. There was a... I can't remember if it was Ruby and Sapphire, but there was you had the Versus Seek. I believe it was Ruby and Sapphire. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But you had the Versus Seeker, and you would just pedal on your bike back and forth right next to this one fisherman. And the fisherman had 5 Magikarps, and you would just pop the Versus Seeker and see if he was wanting to battle again. And you had to do this repeatedly, because 5 Magikarps is only 5 speed effort values. Well, you could have put the Macho Brace on. The Macho Brace doubled that, which made it go from 1 to 2, and then they were worth 10 total. Or you could have gotten the power items back then, which made them go from 1 to 5, because it only gave +4 back then. It still took a very long time to EV train any Pokemon, so it was a lot more difficult back then. And you could only go and use so many vitamins before it just capped out and said, nope, no more, you can't do it. Well, they've changed that a lot, but it was such a struggle back then to try to really EV train something effectively. I need to do just a few just a couple more for the back's defense. And when you were trying to train back then, it was very tough because after you beat all of the the speed IVs and you beat all the Magikarps, you pounded that poor fisherman in the dirt and robbed him of all of his money 25 times. You had to go and equip the power bracer and then do it, another 30 times because you needed all the attack effort values. So you spent a lot of time at that fisherman for all of your sweepers, and for everyone else, like defense and special defense and whatnot, you had to go, like for defense, you had to go beat Geodudes, and for special defense, you had to go find a place where you could, I'm trying to think who it was that was giving out special defense back then. Can't remember who it was that was giving out special defense effort values. But you had to go pummel them into the dirt till you did it, till you got to where you needed to be, which was, again, 100 plus. Anymore, it's 30, 40 Pokemon and you're maxed. So they streamlined it a lot. But EV training gives you so much more... Oh, didn't mean to run into that, but I'll beat it anyway. EV training gives you so much more power than you used to have. Like, without any effort values, you won't have, like, without any effort values, there's a noticeable difference in power, for sure. I still don't have max defense yet. Now, I use some of my feathers and everything for fine-tuning afterward, but considering I don't have feathers, because I use a lot of them, because I've trained a lot of things, I will use the power weights just to get the extra HP. Now, there's a whole bunch of websites out there that say, oh, you can only get 4 into any other stat. You technically can get 6 into those stats. My nose itches. You can technically get 6 into those stats, though the game doesn't calculate any higher than 4, because for every 4 effort values into one stat, you get 1 point of that stat. So regardless of what the websites say, the max is 510, so you have to put in at least 6 into something for it to cap out completely. But it doesn't calculate any higher than 4. Which I think they just need to make it, divisible by 6. But then the 252 wouldn't work. I'm looking specifically for power weights. And 1 battle and I should be completely capped out. Like I said, I normally use feathers for this, but I've been running out of feathers. I have tons of shards, I just don't have feathers. I've EV trained so much stuff that it's ridiculous. And now I just need to go find one more Ghastly. There he is. However, once you start getting into different EV training, like I'm building, I believe the Hydra Apple and the Electrode are going to be for this team I'm currently working on. I'll get to those kind of when I get to those, in terms of the team building, because I wanted to make a team that was actually functionally proper for VGC, Come to me in a second. It'll come to me in a second. Regulation H. I said it during the beginning of this thing, and I just could not remember it. Okay, so now you see he has a power bracer, okay? Now that means I'm going to be getting attack stat on my Sneasel. But let's say I don't want that. I'm going to change the held item, because I want to build speed as well as attack. So in order to build speed and attack, because I already told you where we're going to go, as a matter of fact, I'll show you all 3 of my areas that I go to for EV training. And you might want to have on a pen and paper and write it down, or pause the video, or what have you, because I'll show you right here. So this is where I go, right outside of where the, if you haven't done the stakes this is where the purple stake place was. That's where I go for special attack. Specifically for special attack. Where I go for HP and defense and special defense, depending on what I want to train. If I want to go with like 252 and I don't want to double up on something, I'll show you where I go. I'm gonna just rest at the house to restore all of Colossal's power points. This is one of the reasons I use this place, because you have the house right there, and then you have they're all so close. The EV training areas are. So you technically could EV train effectively in the beginning of the game. If you don't have flight, that's fine. You can always just climb up here. Alright, so the Hoppips are worth special defense. The, can't remember their name. Lechonk. I was gonna call him, like, Grumpig, and it's like, wait, that's Splink's evolution. Oh, or Tepig, which is like, well, wait, that turns into Emboar. But Lechonks are worth HP, and your Tarantulas over here are worth defense, same way with Scatterbugs. They're all worth defense. So right here is where you can get all of your defensive effort values for your, your stall users, your, walls, or whatever you want to call them. You can get all this stuff here, and if you ever run out of power points on your thing that destroys them all. Now, for the Pommos and everything, the Pommies, I don't know what Pommies give. I think it's attack, but there's so few of them, it doesn't matter. So it's mostly like, this is like the defense plateau, and it's right next to your house. So that's always a good sign. Now over here, which we saw earlier, those ruins off in the distance, I was actually going to point to them right now. That's where I do all of my special attack training, which we already know. I'm just going to fly there. Might as well. It gives me a chance to talk and drink coffee and itch my nose some more. Good lord. I don't know what's wrong with my nose. It was perfectly fine all day until I started recording. Isn't that always the way? But no, when you EV train, and you can EV train effectively, and you don't need the power items to do it. If you want to just do it as you're leveling, you can. And it would make your Pokemon much stronger while you're trying to play through the game. Now, most people have already gone through the game because the game is, well over a year old, almost, at this point. And so, most people aren't really starting up a new adventure. Though, if you want to challenge yourself and, do a new adventure, you can. And you can EV train while you're doing it. But this is where I get all of my attack effort values, as well as my speed. So, for my speed and attack, this is the place to do it. Because Flamigos are worth 2. Croagunks, if I can find them. Choodles are worth 1, Croagunks are worth 1, but as you can see, there's 5 Flamigos and a Croagunk. This is the attack plateau. And there's a Poké Center right down the hill. So you could just come out here and do this to your heart's content to get effort values in attack. Now, Psyducks are worth special attack as well, so over with the Ghastlies, there are Psyducks in the water. So you don't really have to worry about, well, if I hit a Psyduck, what do I do? You can just defeat Psyducks if you're after special attack. However, if you don't want special attack, just run. When you run from a battle, it doesn't give you any effort values, so just no effort was put in. But it's kind of a long drawn-out process when doing it the old-fashioned way, but it's a necessary practice. Figuring out your EV spread and what you're aiming to do with your Pokemon actually takes longer than the effort value training, especially in modern generations. Actually, I probably should run Metal Claw, shouldn't I? Now I'll run it over Scratch. I don't know if I'm going to run it in the final iteration of Sneasler. I'm building this Sneasler for specific things, so that's what I'm building it for. It's just... I encourage everybody to at least effort value train or EV train once like this. Like, come out and do it the old-fashioned way, and just give it a shot. Is it boring? Yeah, it's got moments where you sit there and you're just blasting away brain cells. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like I said though, it was worse in the older ones. There were times I could EV train that Magikarp trainer in my sleep, and that is a fact. There are times that I had fallen asleep with my DS in my hand, going back and forth, hitting the Versus Seeker. Sound asleep, doing it. And it got to that point where I could EV train in my sleep. Just the trainer for the Speedy V's, the Magikarp Fisherman. Everybody else though, nah. Now the one thing that I will mention is even though Choodle is worth 1 effort value of attack, it's not. I don't know why I want to say Crocodile. I know it's not. The evolution of Choodle is not worth 1 attack. He's actually worth 1 attack and 1 defense. So you can always go look up online what the effort values are before you go someplace. Because the worst thing you want to do is, start EV training, mess it up, scrap it, and then start over. Because not only are you using, you're using more materials. Because you're using all of your berries and everything to reset your effort values. Now, you don't necessarily have to use... you don't necessarily have to go and make a second Pokemon if you wanted to make a second iteration, say, of a Pokemon. If you wanted to make a special attacking, I don't know, let's say a special attacking Incineroar, right? Instead of a wall. You could zero out all of the effort values on the one you have, and then switch it over with either vitamins or coming out and EV training again. Completely resettable. But that's kind of more wasteful than it is just making a second one. You're better off just making a second one, ripping off the band-aid and saying, you know what? I'm just gonna make 2. Truthfully, because you can then shuffle them around and say, this one is for this, that one's for that, and then you don't have to reset one of them. Now, I don't know how many berries it takes to reset the 252. I don't know how much the 1 berry removes. I've never really sat down and tried to quantify how much 1 berry removes. I would be open to that suggestion if somebody says, hey, 1 berry removes this many effort values. Cool. But it's just really an interesting way of doing it. I encourage everybody, like I said, to try it this way. If you've got, if you're, Daddy Warbucks of Poké Dollars and you got it running out of every single pocket you can think of, then by all means, just, gotta go to Montenevera, I think it is. Let me double check the name of that city. I think it's Montenevera. Montenevera. Yeah, Montenevera. I was right the first time. You could just go there and buy them right at the supply. and you're all set. And you can cram 26, it costs $260,000 Poké Dollars, but you can cram 26 vitamins right down your Pokemon's throat. Right there, he's completely EV trained in the one stat. Or, completely EV trained in 2 stats if you want to spend 520,000 Poké Dollars. Now, for those of you, because I'm still EV training, as you can see, for those of you that want to get into the breeding side of things, I will make a couple of suggestions. I might as well pick up Poison Jab, why not? A couple of suggestions. If you want to get into the Pokemon breeding, first off, you will definitely want to snag yourself a Ditto. Now, you can use any Ditto, but when you see a 6-star Ditto raid, you're better off going there and getting it, because the 6-star Dittos are amazing. I have my own 6-star Ditto that was a 6 IV, as you can see here. This is the one that I caught in my raid. And you always put a Destiny Knot on it, because your IVs, if you don't have a Destiny Knot, I believe they limit you to only having 2 IVs that say best, and then the rest get just a random integer. So you could technically get a 3 IV, but it's not guaranteed. If you, however, you can also Wonder Trade for a Ditto, because there will be people that trade away. If I can find it here, it's in one of my boxes, and I use it for breeding purposes only. They traded away a shiny Italian Ditto. As you can see where it says ITA for, Italian. Now, the reason I use this one with Destiny Knot is because there is the Masuda method. The Masuda method of breeding basically makes this Ditto, when you have 2 from different regions, so 1 Italian and 1 English, or 1 Italian and 1 Chinese, or 1 Chinese and 1 American, or English, or whatever. When you do that, you will have a higher chance of hatching a shiny. It's just the Masuda method that's always been around for as long as I can remember. So if you can get your hands on one of these from either Zacian.net or whatever, they're great for breeding, because it's technically legitimate. You are using the 6 IV to breed a stronger Pokemon of whatever you're breeding, like I did for my Sneasler, and so on and so forth. Now, you may have to go more than 1 generation in order to do that. If you want to breed things that are like Sneasler, or Hisuian Arcanine, or, Hisuian Arcanine into a Hisuian Growlithe, or the Hisuian Electrode like I showed earlier, you're going to need an Everstone. And the one parent is going to have to hold it. So you're going to have to get a Hisuian Sneasel, or have Sneasler, and have it hold a Everstone. And when it holds the Everstone, you can then breed it with whatever you wish and start producing eggs that are Hisuian Sneasel. Same can be said for, instead of having Paldean Whoopers, you can have just your standard Whooper, which then turns into your standard Quagsire instead of Clodsire. So it's not that hard to do, and of course that's easily researchable. Anybody can look that up. There are certain things that you can do to get egg moves over. You can either breed a Pokemon that has the egg move you want, and I do not want the Tadbulb, go away. You can either breed the egg move you want, or you can do the other method, which is where you have one Pokemon that has... Whoa, get back up there. What is this? Ah, a Wikiberry. Now you can have one Pokemon that knows the move, and then one Pokemon that doesn't know the move. Now this is how you get, what's that called? Parabolic Charge. This is how you get Parabolic Charge onto an Bellabol. Parabolic Charge is only learned up until obviously the Blueberry Academy and everything. Parabolic Charge is only learned by Miraidon, and there was one other. There's an electric type, and it wasn't Bellable. It wasn't in Bellabolt's egg group. Okay, but even though it wasn't in Bellabolt's egg group, it says Bellabolt could learn Parabolic Charge by breeding. Now, if they're not in the egg group, they'll never produce an egg. It just won't happen, right? So the way you get Parabolic Charge on your Bellabolt is you have to have a Bellabolt with an empty move slot, and you have to have the Pokemon that knows Parabolic Charge. Which, if you're a Violet owner, you could just use your Miraidon. Doesn't really matter. Have him learn Parabolic Charge, have the empty slot on the Bellabolt, and then make the Bellabolt hold the Mirror Herb. And the Mirror Herb is sold down in Cascarafa, I believe. And then you just put up a picnic. And you fart around in the picnic for, a couple minutes. And then when you pack up the picnic, your Bellabolt automatically knows Parabolic Charge. Which your Bellabolt could then pass on Parabolic Charge by just breeding naturally with a Ditto. But there's a caveat to that. Female Pokemon do not carry on moves. I know, it sounds weird. But what female Pokemon do is female Pokemon dictate what you're going to have for a Pokemon. So, for example, if you breed two things in the same egg group, an Electabuzz and a Hypno, because they both have human shape, I believe, in their egg groups. If you have a female Electabuzz and a male Hypno, you will have an Electabuzz that may or may not have access to some of Hypno's moves. So long as it's in the egg move pool. Because the males dictate who passes on the move. Up until the Mirror Herb thing, the males always dictate the move getting passed on. So, you used to have to do what was called an egg chain, like a breeding chain. And you'd have to have, in order to get soft-boiled on a Clefairy or a Clefable, you would have to have a male Clefable in red. It was like male Clefable in red or green way back in the day. And it would have to have learned the soft-boiled TM on Clefable to then transfer it to silver or gold and have that Clefable that's a male Clefable either breed with a Ditto or breed with a female Clefable in order for you to pass on soft-boiled to the next generation. Yeah. There were other chains that were even... I'm not gonna fight the Croagunk. I think I'm already maxed out on the attack anyway, or on the speed. There were other... No, I'm not maxed out on speed. Is that another shiny? No. There were other breeding chains that were even longer, that were just insane. And there were ways to get specific things onto other specific Pokemon. One of them was you needed an Arbok. This was in a later generational game. I think it was in Fire Red and Leaf Green. You needed an Arbok that knew what was it? I'm trying to think of the name of it. Hold on. Stockpile. You had to have an Arbok that knew Stockpile. And it had to be a male Arbok that knew Stockpile. That had to then breed with... I think it was a female Bulbasaur or something of the like, or a female like Nidoking or a female Nidoqueen, sorry, not Nidoking, female Nidorino, I should say. And then from there you had to breed a male offspring Nidoran with Stockpile to a female Snorlax. It was a long convoluted chain just to get Stockpile on Snorlax, which didn't function as well as Curse, but it was an effective double defense increase. Then of course they just eventually brought out Munchlax, and then Munchlax learned Stockpile normally. So Nintendo has streamlined a lot of things, including the egg chains. But this is definitely the classic way of going about doing it. I fear, though, my biggest fear is the next thing I'm doing, because the next thing I'm doing, I have to do a very specific effort value spread, which means I have to pay absolute attention to what I'm doing. Which I apologize for the mild yawn there. As you can see, the boredom of effort value training is setting in. That's the thing, is it's one of these videos where, yes, it's probably going to be very boring to watch me pummeling things that are not a challenge. But being able to talk about effort value training and the way to do it properly, I think, is kind of an educational tool, or at least the way I do it. It's kind of an educational tool when it comes to Pokemon. The other thing I wanted to mention about IV breeding, and I haven't done that yet, is when you had the Ditto, the 6 IV Ditto or 5 IV Ditto, etc. Even though it says best, that doesn't mean it is always best. You have or individual values, IVs, that range from 0 to 31. Now, some of them you want them to be 0. There are some cases where having an attack individual value of 0 is beneficial because they can't use foul play and completely destroy you. There's also moments where having a 0 speed effort value, pardon me, where having a 0 speed effort value allows you to go quicker once you're in a trick room. So sometimes having a no good effort value is, well, good. But those times I would say are exceedingly rare unless you're really aiming for that. Having just a 5 or 6 IV Ditto is ideal. And then you have to have the Ditto hold the Destiny Knot. Because then your offspring will have more than... I think they said minimum of 2, but I think they might have changed that. Because I've hatched some ones that have only 1 IV. And I'm holding on to the Destiny Knot going... This should have worked, but it didn't. I think you're capped at 4, though. I think you're not allowed a higher effort or higher individual value than 4 without the Destiny Knot. So with the Destiny Knot, it can go up to 6, and there you go. But like I said, it's definitely worth doing. The standard EV training, the standard IV breeding. The only drawback to breeding in Scarlet Violet that didn't exist in previous iterations is once you set up your little picnic, you're locked in. After you make the sandwich, you're locked into basically collecting eggs for the next 30 minutes. Like, clear your schedule and just hover over that, basket of eggs because that's all you're doing for the next 30 minutes. And that is absolute agony. I would gladly take the old style of eggs over the new one. Don't get me wrong, I love the way you can do a lot of stuff with a picnic, the fact that you can use the mirror herb trick with a picnic, the fact that you can breed in a picnic, and you can breed more than one thing with your Ditto. Love it. I think it's a great idea. I think it was well thought out, but I think Game Freak, I was gonna say Nintendo, but it's Game Freak. I think Game Freak went a little smooth brain when they were trying to implement it and said, oh, well, yes, you can breed multiple Pokemon and you can get multiple eggs out of the basket. But you can't do anything else while you're picnic. You can't, like, you can't EV train, you can't gain EXP, you can't do anything worthwhile in a picnic except hover over the basket and wait. And that's the agony. That is the absolute agony of it all. Because, like, you're just sitting there. You're accomplishing getting eggs, yes. But then, after you have a box and a half of eggs because your egg power sandwich overproduces, you then have to hatch them all. Just to see if either A, you got a shiny, or B, you got something worthwhile effort value-wise, or individual value-wise, I should say. You have to hatch them all in order to find out. Okay, no problem. So you set out to hatch them all, and you put somebody with either Flame Body or Steam Engine in the front, and then you just, you know, do what I do, which is do circles around, can't think of the name of the city. It's the one I always use, too, because you can just do circles around it. Let's see if Levincia. Yeah. You just do circles around Levincia. With 5 eggs in your party and Colossal that has Steam Engine or anything that has Flame Body, which cuts your egg hatching in half. And once you're done hatching all your eggs, you better have Pokemon Go, otherwise you're going to be agonizing releasing them one at a time, because they're not worth anything. And you will fill up all of your boxes in a heartbeat. Trying to make a team, I have filled up so many boxes. Like, you have no idea how many boxes I just capped out. I mean, I'm talking like 5-6 boxes were full, and that was in this game. And then when I went to Pokemon Home, there was another 7. And that was just to get, like, maybe 2 acceptable Pokemon for a team. So you're going to have a lot of byproduct. But you can mass release in Pokemon Home, so that's a good thing. When mass releasing in Pokemon Home, it's absolutely worth it. That should have been implemented in almost every single Pokemon game ever. As a mass release function. Like, I don't see why they don't have it. I mean, they'd be like, oh, well, I guess they're afraid that you're gonna release something important. Okay, that's why they put up a prompt. Well, then just put in a second prompt that says, this batch of Pokemon you want to release contains a legendary. Are you sure? It's not hard to just add that prompt. I'm getting to the end of the road here of finishing off this Sneasel, and then I got one other thing I have to make, and then I have to level them all to at least 50 so I can hyper train in the stats they don't have, as well as, and your hyper training is in Mononevera as well. As well as get their TMs and everything set up. And once that's all finished, they're all ready to go, and I might have a team ready for the next video. Maybe. My next thing that I'm making is rather odd. Then again, when is anything I make not odd? Like, realistically speaking. I make so many odd things, it's not even funny. It's almost like I have to. And not like forced to, but compelled, right? I'm compelled to do something off meta. It's one of the things that I think always bothered me about every single game, right? That doesn't matter what it is. It could be, it could be Pokemon, it could be Hearthstone, it could be Call of Duty, you know, Warzone or whatever. It could be Diablo 2, anything. Anything that has some semblance of competition will inevitably get a metagame. Now, metagaming is fine. Doing, you know, going into the post-game like in Pokemon and doing what I'm doing here. EV training and getting ready to do, like, ranked battles. Okay, fine. Like, metagame that way. But what inevitably happens, especially in the information age of what we have today, there's no surprise, right? Because everybody just goes to a website, types in, and there you go. There's your meta-defining team. And that meta-defining team you will see about 5 copies of, if not 6 copies of, at any given tournament. Or some variation of meta-defining team at every tournament. And it gets stale. Now, Regulation H kind of breaks that a little bit, because Regulation H has a lot of Pokemon you can work with. The stats aren't terrible, and so you can kind of shimmy one in there that doesn't really fit the mold. And that's what I enjoy doing, is bringing in something that doesn't 100% fit the mold, so that it's different and unique and interesting. Almost to make, you know, playing the game more fun. Not just for me, but for the viewer, right? It's like, why is this guy running? Like, for example, when I did the Sun team, what did I do? I had a Sunflora. Who runs the Sunflora? Right? No one runs a Sunflora. Mostly because they say you need to go to a white padded room and spend your time talking to the guards. They think you're crazy when you say, oh man, Sunflora. See what I mean? But the opposite side of that coin is, you have those people that look at Sunflora and they go, wait a minute. Hold up, let him cook. He's onto something. Because not only was I using Sunflora, but I was using Sunflora on a Trick Room team and trying to set up this weird double status room thing. It didn't work, but back in the day, that would have been an absolute wicked strat. So I'm building this team to kind of be able to play in any weather. Kind of. There are some exceptions to the rule. But I hope they stick with Regulation H. I like the battling a lot more on Regulation H than Regulation G. Well, he's done, in terms of effort value. Oh, except for the HP, which, can I put on the HP thing? But I EV trained. I finished EV training 2 Pokemon. I EV trained a third, and I've got 1 more to go. And once it's all said and done, I can then slap it all on a team and give it a shot. Will it succeed? I don't know for sure. I mean, it's strategically it's sound. That's just strategically. That's not 100%. There are times you just have to sit down and say, you know, my team didn't perform. And that's the other thing. I think there is a lot to the game where you can plan for and you can play around. But then there's a lot of the game where it doesn't matter how well you do it, the RNG will rear its ugly head and will eventually win. And in that regard, yeah, that's kind of the issue, essentially. I need to find out what the time of day is. It's nighttime in the game, so I need to basically fly around until it's daytime. Because I need it to be daytime in order to make Sneasler, because I don't want... it to be a Weavile. Actually, the lighthouse would be a great place to go, because then I could just look out of the lighthouse and be like, okay, it's daytime, and then just evolve him then. But yeah, like an ever-evolving meta is an interesting concept, but there's also the thought that even in an ever-evolving meta, you've got people that will make it stale. Which, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm the old fuddy-duddy here. But I look at it from the perspective of, I played I played back in the day, at least mildly competitive Pokemon. And I played multiple times, and I had decent teams, and in Pokemon Battle Revolution I did fairly well, if not incredibly well, given looking back on what my teams were and what lack of effort values they had. Or not effort values, sorry, lack of individual values they had. I thought, man, I did pretty good. Maybe it's just me being a fuddy-duddy, but like I was saying with the meta, every single time more information comes out and people have ease of access to this information, it ruins the meta. Like, Hearthstone's the same way. You can go and make a Hearthstone deck, and what happens? 20 minutes later, if it's a deck that's got a higher win rate, everybody's playing it. And that becomes problematic, because people care more about winning than having fun and trying something new. They're like, well, I'm going to go with the old tried and true method because, well, it puts a W in the column. To be honest, that's kind of lame. I mean, winning's great fun, don't get me wrong, but if winning's all you care about, it's kind of lame. I do things for fun. I do things to have a good time and have fun. Have a laugh. Chuckle about it. And that's where I'm at. Now, some say would, oh, well, you've lost your competitive edge. Okay. But what did I find when I've lost my competitive edge? Hmm. Interesting question. Such an interesting question. That's such an interesting question that it's like, what does one gain when they lose that competitive edge? Do they gain a sense of appreciation for the game? Do they gain the wisdom of knowing that the games are about having a good time? Do they gain some insight as to, is it really worthwhile fighting over for some, you know, arbitrary, paltry item, or some sort of arbitrary rating system? That's what I'm saying. Like, where, like, what do they gain? Like, what do you gain by realizing that winning isn't the only thing that matters? Now, I'm not saying that I've given up on trying to win. I would love to, you know, make a winning team that's a little offbeat for the meta, in, you know, in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I would love to make a winning team. But it really raises the question. Is it that important to win? I think that makes it the most interesting question, to be honest with you. I gotta see if I can... Let me save. I'm sorry that this video is almost an hour long. I do apologize for this. However, I want to see if I can do this right, because I don't want to mess up this Sneasler and then have to make it again. Because that would suck. Because that would be me just doing this same thing all over again. And nobody wants that. Just trust me, nobody wants that at all. Razor Claw at day. Doesn't say any specific time of day, just Razor Claw at day. So let's give it a shot. Shall we? I think I only have one Razor Claw, but I think I can purchase more, so I'm not worried about using it. I have 7 of them. Huh? Do I have to give it to him? And then level him? Let's try that. Hopefully I don't have to use it in Pokemon Arceus. Because that'd be kind of lame, wouldn't it? There we go. No Weaviles, no whammies. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted. Yep. I'll take the Dire Claw over the Poison Jab. Now, my one last thing I'm going to talk about before I sign off, and he doesn't know Fake Out. But I don't know when he learns it anyway. Anyhow, one last thing I'm going to talk about before I sign off is this. If you want to find a good place to get EXP and other stuff post EV training, the Ace tournament, you know, you just take a couple of level 100 into them with you, and then you use those level 100s to completely sweep all the teams, and then the ones that's not a 100 gets pretty much all the experience. You do that after you EV train, and it's a quick way to level without using EXP candies. I use it a lot, and it also generates you money because it gives you like 16,000 if, you know, or more per win. But Sorry for the long video. I have to say that because I didn't expect it to take an hour. I hope you appreciate it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Except for the... Thanks, Hoppip. Except for the long time that it took to EV train the Sneasler. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good...